again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel, and that gentleman on the other side of the screen is Mr. Nick Harris. Nick, what time did you get to bed after the Cowboys overtime thriller against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night?
I pulled back into my driveway about 3:15 a.m., shower and get back in bed is probably about 3:40. Yeah, it was tough. I finally recovered. I think this morning I can officially say I have recovered from that night.
Takes a day, doesn't it?
It does take a day. It does take a day.
It does. I think, I left before you did, and I think I was out at about 2 a.m.-ish, 2:15-ish. That was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And it took me a full day as well. This morning I felt like I was like, okay, I feel kind of like myself again, which typically is not good. Speaking of not good, the Dallas Cowboys finished their game against the Green Bay Packers in a 40-all tie. This one didn't feel like a win to me. I know some of the players were like, well, we didn't lose, so it's beats a loss. I know you were in the Cowboys locker room after the game. I went into Green Bay locker room after the game, and to hear some of the reactions from the players, that they didn't know how to react because at least a couple of the players that I talked to, they had never been involved in a tie before. Nick, is this a good tie?
There's no good tie. The NFL needs to get rid of this, even if it's the alternating 2-point conversions that college does to figure it out. I hate that, but at least they determine a winner. I don't think there's such thing as a good tie because you had an offense that played lights out on Sunday night, and you basically don't get anything out of it. You get an unresolved result, and the defense just continues to have its issues, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But when you have a performance like that, not only from the offense but from Dak Prescott without two starting offensive linemen, without CeeDee Lamb, that's tough that you couldn't get a win out of that.
A number of years ago, because a lot of people didn't even know the rules about it's a 10-minute period. Both teams get the ball because the NFL has been kicking around the overtime rules now really for the last 15 to 20 years because the original rule was first score wins in a 15-minute period. And then if it ends in a tie, then it ends. And then in the playoffs, it's sudden death. Well, they kept moving it around, and now both teams get at least one offensive possession. And it's only a 10-minute period, which, Dallas in that opening overtime possession, they had the ball a long time.
Yeah.
And I thought as long as they were going, they might be able to run out most of the clock. And they almost did. It was a great possession. Obviously ended in a field goal, but you said they'd like to get rid of it. Do you think now, and I know I was covering this before you were covering the NFL, which was the players wanted this. The players wanted the game to end. They didn't want to play a 15-minute period. They don't want to do what the colleges did in terms of going back and forth because it's more basically opportunities to get hurt. And you're tired at that point in the game. What realistic because it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And now as a result, the standings are screwed up. You have that unsightly tie in the NFC now with two teams. Now, this is regular in major soccer. Ties are regular in major soccer. They're regular in the National Hockey League. Obviously, they're not in Major League Baseball or the NBA. But what do you think is a feasible, realistic scenario that they will adjust this overtime to avoid the ungodly tie where nobody wins?
I think realistically they do look at the college game, and if it's still tied after that 10-minute period, they do the alternating 2-point conversions. I mean, that's probably the most realistic thing that I can think of off the top of my head. But if you're asking me, we go hockey shootout style. We line up both kickers for 50-yard field goals until one misses, and we just have fun that way. I also had another fun idea, and I think this one is actually more enticing. Get the punters out there. The punters have to line up at the 35-yard line, the opposing 35-yard line. Whichever one gets it closer to the goal line wins the game. That would be exhilarating.
No, I don't hate those. I know I covered – tell you how old I am. I remember the National Hockey League had an all-star game, and it tied after overtime, and they went to a shootout, and they had never had a shootout before. But they were like, well, let's just do it. And it was great, but they didn't know how to do it. And the complaint was by the players, especially the veterans, you wouldn't end an NBA game in a dunk contest. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, go ahead, trick it up. Have the mascots out there arm wrestle. Put the cheerleaders in a death fight. Something. I don't care. Make it interesting.
Yeah.
Hunter's idea, the idea that a lot of games come down to specialists anyways.
Yeah.
It's third of the game. So we took, offense, defense, special teams. Okay, if it's that important, put the game on the line as opposed to you guys killing each other for alternating 2-point conversion attempts.
Yep.
I love the idea of like just see who can move the ball back the furthest and hit a field goal. Because that way, the Dallas Cowboys would never lose.
Exactly. They have a pretty good punter too, so that idea would work out for them in that area as well.
Well, maybe the Cowboys are ahead of the game. You know what I mean? Maybe they're pioneers, and when they make this change, they're like, "Oh my God, Jerry's a genius." Okay,
Jerry spoke about it this morning on the radio, and he was like, the reason the overtime is the way it is they have to fit that game into the 3-hour window, blah blah. And it's like, okay, whatever.
It's like we're worrying about in this day and age, we're worried about 3-hour windows.
Jeez,
really?
Man. Jeez.
That's it. Yeah.
TV has ruined
everything. Nick, you mentioned that the defense couldn't stop anybody. Jordan Love goes for 337 yards passing, the Packers quarterback, 3 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs, 22 carries, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. Green Bay's offense, 35 carries, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, we're obviously going to get into the Dallas offense, but, I'm going to throw you under the bus here, and I don't think I'm going to throw you under the bus, but, early in the game, I don't know if you remember, you said it, Nick. You said it in a very nice, charming way. Boy, this defense sucks. Yeah. And I can't really argue with that. It is so bad. They had Jadeveon Clowney for the first game. I didn't really notice him very much. The linebackers are not good. They didn't start Trayvon Diggs. Malik Hooker is hurt. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. What's the state of a defense that Matt Eberflus now has to wear? Because twice this team has scored 40 points and they've only won one of them.
Yeah, let's start with the positives. Why not?
All right, let's start with the positives.
Because it won't take
nobody
that long.
died.
It won't take that long.
Okay.
The pass rush was better on Sunday. I think that was the best pass rushing performance you've seen from this Cowboys defensive line so far. They only got home for the 1 sack, but the pressures were affecting Jordan Love quite a bit, and it affected the way this Packers offense moved at times. And so I give credit to the pass rush and being able to figure out some things. James Houston had the strip sack. And Chris Collinsworth said it on NBC. I've been saying it since training camp. This guy is going to have to figure out how to get more snaps from the defensive staff. The defensive staff's got to figure out how to get him on the field more. This is their most effective pass rusher. And when you look at his pass rush win rate over the course of his career, it is atop the rest of the defensive linemen that they have on this roster. And that includes guys like Osa Digizua, Jadeveon Clowney throughout the course of their careers. So, James Houston is a guy that I would love to see a little bit more in these pass rush situations. Donovan Ezaraku, the second-round rookie, came into the year with so much prowess and hype around his pass rush arsenal, but it was his effect in the run game on Sunday that was really on display. And I continue to like what I see from the Cowboys run game. Granted, they gave up over 100 yards, but you compare with what they have done in recent years in the run game, it is considerably different. It's considerably better. They're etching into the top 12 now in rush yards allowed per game, and that's a positive step in the right direction. But you look at this secondary, and this secondary continues to have communication issues. And, something that Brian Schottenheimer said on Monday in his presser that I thought was interesting was, Malik Hooker's going to be out for at least a couple of weeks with a toe injury that he's battling. Wanye Thomas is going to slide into his role. I asked him, what have y'all liked about Wanye to be able to, take over that role and be all right with it? And they were like, well, he's an efficient communicator. We actually really like that about him because we need that right now. And so that kind of made me perk up and be like, okay, so they finally do have a communicator on the back end. It just took someone getting hurt in politics not to play involved for them to actually put him there. And so it's
that was a good comment. I like that. Go ahead.
It's where this defense is right now, and they have to be able to slide in the guys that are actually fit for the role. I don't feel like Malik Hooker has proved that through 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks, considering how much he played in that game. Wanye Thomas is going to have a really good opportunity, not only to start in these couple of games, but if this defense takes a big step forward, potentially to start moving forward. And I think they should at least have that on the table, because Wanye Thomas has proved that in his years whenever he's gotten in rotational work. And he's gotten in rotational work over the last couple of weeks, even when players were not hurt. I think you need to see that in this game.
You mentioned James Houston and how well he's played in limited opportunities. You see sometimes in instances like that, they say you see that guy who comes in a limited role, and he comes in and really thrives. And his percentages, for whatever they are, in any sport, the guy comes in a limited role and he kills it. And you say, well, we got to give this guy more reps. We got to give this more time. Okay, this guy's been in the league for a while. There's a reason why somebody along the way said, well, we've got to keep him here, because if we put him there, then he's going to be overexposed. Is there any risk that if they do that with James Houston, Nick, do you think they're just going to overexpose him and he will be seen?
Even if that's, part of the risk on the table, you got to take it, because this pass rush has been so bad. And he's the leading sacker on the team right now through 4 weeks. And if you had told me in training camp, granted, Micah Parsons still on the roster in training camp, if you had told me 4 weeks into the season that James Houston would have the most sacks on this team, I would have said there's a big problem. And sure enough, there is a big problem. Granted, that's nothing against James Houston, but some of these other guys are going to have to step up. Marshawn Nealon, Jadeveon Clowney, he was signed for a reason. Get home to the quarterback. Sam Williams, my goodness. I mean, it's trending toward a reality where he's not a Cowboy next year. There's a lot of guys on the end that you can point at and say you need better production from.
No, and you mentioned some guys who played well. I was so encouraged by what Marshawn Nealon did in week 1 against Philadelphia, but
agreed.
Really, I haven't seen him so much, and it is about noticing guys for the right reasons. They don't necessarily have to make a big play on every play or a sack on every play, but are they around it? Are they affecting the play in a positive way for your team? And I'm not seeing it from those guys. You can name all the linebackers. Jack Sanborn. Forget the tackle totals. I'm always get irritated with that. Well, this guy's 1,000 tackles. Well, where's the tackle made? Is it 9 yards off the ball in the wrong direction? Well, who cares? Anybody, that doesn't matter. Kenneth Murray has struggled. I don't. But the problem is, who do they go to? This is who they have. Your 53 is your 53. You're not going to find anybody else off the street. They're just going to have to get a little bit better. And I do believe as an NFL season goes, especially under a first-year coordinator, like Matt Eberflus is, we saw it last year with Zimmer, that defense did get a little bit better. And I do believe this defense, probably because it had only one direction to go, will get a little bit better. But you nailed it. Sam Williams is just doing nothing. And not only that, doing nothing, but just plays. You're like, what are you doing? And I know it's hard and I know it's fast, but this is your 3rd year, dude. Like, get with it. Or your fourth. And this is it. Right? You nailed it. This is it. It's either, and he'll get another contract or something like that, but this is it. The one thing that you did say that I totally agree with, they got a little bit more pressure up the middle because that's where their best players are. Yeah. But at the same time, you give up 164 on the ground. That's a lot. Now, conversely, let's talk about the positive thing is, and this offense was killing it on Sunday night without CeeDee Lamb. Dak goes for 319 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He played great. Javonte Williams, who I think a lot of people thought, oh, gee whiz, this is Rico Dowdle 2.0 behind an injured offensive line. Big shout out to that offensive line, by the way. Whatever you want to say about Will McClay and this team and coaching stuff, they have done a very good job finding offensive linemen and developing offensive linemen. TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, those guys have done a good job. I think Tyler Guyton did okay, and Terrence Steele did better than I thought he would do. Wasn't perfect, but he did better than I thought he would do considering who he was going against. But Javonte Williams has done a terrific job as RB1 for this team. Offensively, it's a lot to expect. And 40 points a game is way too much to expect. 37 points in regulation is way too much to expect. Point production, 28 to 32 points a game. Is that unrealistic for this offense?
Yeah, I think it's sustainable. You talked about all those pieces that they were missing on Sunday against the best scoring defense in the NFL. Yeah. They were still able to put up 40. And this is the number 1 offense in the NFL by pass yards right now. It's the number 3, or not by pass yards, by total yards right now. It's the number 3 offense by points scored. I think it's right around in that 30 range. I think it is sustainable. And unfortunately, it might have to be sustainable if they want to find some wins.
The Micah Parsons drama. Micah returns for his first game against the Cowboys since the trade. Jerry Jones, he played it up. Micah didn't play it up. He said some things after the game, but it's here and gone. This was not the Luka Doncic return, clearly, for the Lakers at Mavericks game that it was in April. But there was some drama there, but there's still some lingering things about this that I'm not really particularly fond of. And I don't think Micah Parsons is either. Micah Parsons is a Packer. He signed the big contract. Does that mean this drama around this deal is over? I don't think it does.
No, absolutely not. This is going to stick with his career as long as he's in the NFL. And even afterward, there's going to be discussions if he's a Hall of Famer, which he's certainly on that trajectory, is, how does that get acknowledged at the Hall of Fame in Canton 20 years from now or however long that is? I mean, this is always going to be hanging around who he is and the decisions that Jerry Jones has made. You talk about the Herschel Walker trade. It ended up being a pretty positive one for the Cowboys, but if it was negative, you bet your bottom dollar or top dollar that it would have been, it would still be a talking point today. So no, this will be something that sticks with both of them for the rest of their lives. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because there's certain trades, and you don't see a lot of them. In the NBA, you see big ones, and hockey and baseball, certainly you see big moves, but deals like this are significant because they're so rare. Yeah. I know in Indianapolis, they talked about that Marshall Faulk trade for a long time. Mm-hmm. And obviously the Herschel Walker deal they talked about for a long time. Certainly when San Diego and the Giants, they talked about the Eli Manning deal for a long, long time. And the part that you talk about is what happened afterwards. We don't know who these picks are going to be for another 2 years, and what they're ultimately going to play out and how this is going to play out for good and bad. For me, for Green Bay to win this deal, they've got to win the Super Bowl with this player as a big part of it. And he's got a long window, I think. I think you would say he has a 5 to 7 year window to potentially do that. But for me, we're looking at, you're right, this is going to go on forever, and one of those things that we can talk about for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Speaking of trades, the one big trade that the Cowboys made in the offseason that had a lot of scrutiny and a lot of discussion was the deal for wide receiver George Pickens. The first couple of weeks, you and I talked about it here on Cowboys Overtime. George didn't do a lot. Well, on Sunday night, without CeeDee Lamb, who was out with an injury, George Pickens went off. 8 catches, 134 yards with 2 touchdowns. I got to think that's who George Pickens is. Now, he may not do it every week. That's a lot. But why do you think finally we saw the George Pickens that the Cowboys saw when they made that deal with the Steelers in the offseason?
Yeah, it's interesting because, George Pickens is not CeeDee Lamb, but the Cowboys don't need him to be. They don't need him to be. They need him to be a dynamic playmaking weapon, and he showed that on Sunday. And honestly, I think it's never good to see a player like CeeDee Lamb come out, but I think it happened at a really opportune time for the Cowboys because, this connection is still building on the field between Dak Prescott and George Pickens. And you saw that flip kind of switch in the second quarter. He didn't have a reception until the 5-minute mark of that second quarter. And then that production just came in a flurry afterward. And these guys were really starting to connect. Their timing was down. The understanding of where the holes in the zone coverages for the Packers were, there was a lot of understanding between Dak and George Pickens after that point. I think a flip switch for that connection in that game against the Green Bay Packers, and I think it happened late in the first half, and it continued throughout the rest of the game. It's why you saw the offense score on every possession they had in the second half, and he was a part of every single drive that they had in the second half. So, I think moving forward, as far as, he's going to be establishing his value while CeeDee Lamb is out. He's going into an offseason where he's going to have to negotiate a new contract, or the team is going to place a franchise tag on him, one of the two. And he has to prove that he has the value of a long-term contract instead. And I think 1-for-1 in that department as far as, him stepping up in the absence of CeeDee Lamb. But, how does that production kind of balance out whenever Lamb does come back? That's going to be the big question, and, how they can kind of operate as a Batman and Robin type of situation. But it's encouraging for this Cowboys offense. And shoot, I thought it was encouraging by the entire wide receiver corps. Everybody stepped up. Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, Jake Ferguson finally got in the end zone. Everybody. Ryan Flanoy had 3 catches. This is a group that really stepped forward and could potentially even be getting more help this Sunday at Jonathan Mingo.
Well, and you talked about Jalen Tolbert's catch on that 50-yarder where he's catching it out of bounds and he gets both toes in.
Yeah.
That's one of those plays that, the top 5 receivers in the game make.
Yeah.
And I'm not being facetious about that. That's a Justin Jefferson catch. That's a Jamar Chase catch. That's a CeeDee Lamb catch. And you're like, well, where the hell's this been?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things as a coach and an evaluator, you say, oh, it's there. Like, there's a really good player in there. It's probably not CeeDee Lamb. It's probably not George Pickens. It's not the other guys that I mentioned. But there's a good – and if that's a really, really hard catch that he made, to come back to it, to keep his toes in down, to catch it, secure it, all that's really hard. I think the challenge of the Cowboys is it a one-off? Or do they think if this guy gets more opportunities, he can make plays like that? And I don't know. I mean, I know you and I were talking about Jalen Tolbert, and he's an easy target to kick around. Do you think with CeeDee Lamb, we're going to see more opportunities for him, or it's going to be really isolated? Okay, nobody else is open. I'm going to throw it to that guy.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for Jalen Tolbert to find sustainable production in an offense that has CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, also has Jake Ferguson healthy, also has Kevontae Turpin's taking a step forward. It's funny because you look at the rest of the NFC East. If you take the Cowboys out of the equation, Kevontae Turpin has more receiving yards than every receiver in the NFC East except for Malik Neighbors and Deebo Samuel.
And Malik's out for the year.
And Malik's out for the year now. So, I mean, it's Kevontae Turpin has had, a really strong start to the year in his own right, 159 receiving yards, but he's 4th on the team. There's just a lot of balls to go around in this receiving core. And it's tough to be able to find sustainable production for a guy like Jalen Tolbert, even if he is coming off of a 7-touchdown year. Look, once this room gets healthy, and people might not like to hear it, once this room gets healthy, I think you got to maximize the value for Jalen Tolbert and try to find a defensive piece that you can trade for Jalen Tolbert in a deal, because you have a guy that led this team in touchdowns last year. You're probably not going to be feeding him the ball when CeeDee Lamb and Jonathan Mingo are healthy. I think your receiver room is good enough to be able to step forward without him. That's what I would do. But
it's funny you mentioned Jonathan Mingo, Nick. If you hadn't mentioned his name, I totally forgot he was on the team. I forgot about his injury. And you mentioned all those different guys and opportunities. And really, it's hard for any team. The 4th or 3rd guy, it's hard for any of those guys to get opportunities. Yeah. But you do see flashes, and you see flashes for a reason. It's can you do it again and again and again? And that's the hardest part. I do want to ask you about this guy because he was inactive again. And when the draft happened, a lot of people, especially regionally, were excited about the Dallas Cowboys selecting Texas running back Jaden Blue. Big burst, fast guy. Cowboys signed a couple of veterans in the offseason, talked about Javonte Williams. Jaden can't get on the field. He has not been active. I don't think he's been active in any of the first 4 weeks. Is that correct, Nick?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, that's not great. I know the running back room with Hunter Luepke at fullback, they like him. He's obviously a player. They obviously like Miles Sanders, although that's not great, but Javonte's been terrific. What is Jaden Blue's problem?
I think there are a few things. First off, it's when the decision is made at the beginning of the year to have the inactive list. You have your 53-man roster. You only have 48 guys that you can suit up and play in any given week. When that decision is made of what that inactive list looks like in week 1, that's pretty much the decision. That's the timeline. It's not a week-to-week decision. It's not, okay, every single week, F Jaden Blue. It's F Jaden Blue week 1, I guess, more so. And
somebody's got to be hurt.
It's going to have to be an injury or Miles Sanders really kind of, not showing a whole lot in the opportunities that he does have. Miles Sanders did battle an ankle injury in this game, but it looks like he's going to be all right going into this week. That's one thing. Another side of the coin is they want to see consistency out of Jaden Blue. They haven't gotten it in practices throughout his time here. They want to see consistent days. That's been the thing that has been preached every single week. Brian Schottenheimer has asked about Jaden Blue multiple times every single week. And that's what he says. It's like, we want to see consistency. We want to see consistency.
What's he not doing? I mean, educate people. What does that mean? I think I have an idea, but educate me. What does that mean he's not doing in very limited time? They're seeing something about him that says, dude, we can't trust you. What is it?
Yeah, it would be, he is the number one scout team running back, first off. So he has an important role. And
you're
for
right.
all intents and purposes, he has an important role, especially against some of these teams that, have had the Josh Jacobs and the Saquon Barkleys here in the first 4 weeks. He gives the opposing defense that look in practice throughout the week. And so, he will have a really good day on a Wednesday, and then on a Thursday, it's probably not as good. And so they want to see the consistency throughout the course of a week. I will say on Monday, Brian Schottenheimer was asked once again about Jaden Blue for about the umpteenth time. And he said he's getting very close. He said he's loved the consistency recently. Now it's about figuring out the roster dynamics. And so I think if a roster spot is able to free up in some way, I think you're going to see Jaden Blue on the field. But right now they need a lot of that help on the defensive side of the ball, especially given the extra injury that just happened in the safety department. They're going to have to elevate one of these practice squad guys in Elijah Clark probably. I'd be curious to see, how Jaden Blue makes his way off that inactive list. But I think that's now the next step is like, okay, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing in practice. Now, how do you get him on the roster? And that's not an easy solution. It's not.
One person who was active that I didn't expect it was Mozzie Smith, the former first-round pick from Michigan, was finally active against the Packers Sunday night. I about fell out of my chair when I saw it. I guess I noticed him. I saw him in on some tackles. I saw him on some pursuit. So I guess that's good. What does this mean for him? Anything?
Yeah, it was his second game being active. He was active for the Chicago Bears game as well.
Was he? Okay, I really didn't notice him then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very minimal, type of situation because Kenny Clark plays such a heavy snap share, and that's what it has been over the course of the first 4 weeks. And in that week 4 game against the Packers, he had 15 snaps that Mozzie Smith did. So, it's very minimal. And when he does come on, he's quickly subbed out. It's more so to get Kenny Clark a breather. As long as he doesn't give up a huge gash down the middle, I guess he's doing his job. But it's very minimal impact at that point.
Well, I think if you're Mozzie Smith at this point is, can you be active? And I don't know what the number is. Can you be an active player for 40 NFL games? Because if you can make that, then you qualify for the NFL's pension program when you turn 40 years old or whatever it is. Yeah. So I think if you're Mozzie, it's more like, can I just be on the 53 on any team for 40 games? All right. The Cowboys play on Sunday against maybe the worst team in the NFL. Aaron Glenn, the pride of Texas A&M, the former Dallas Cowboys defensive back under Bill Parcells, and the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions under Dan Campbell, in his first job, hasn't scored a win yet for maybe one of the worst organizations in North American sports. And I don't say that sarcastically. The Cowboys are set up for a win streak here. Jets are 0-4. Following week, they go to Carolina against maybe top 5 worst teams in sports, the Carolina Panthers. 1-3. Bryce Young really hasn't worked out, but an Andy Dalton. See what happens. This is dangerous. The Jets almost won one a couple weeks ago against Tampa. Aaron Glenn celebrated too early on the sidelines, and they came out, and then the Bucs came back and beat them on a last-second field goal. This is not a good team. Justin Fields is their guy. Tyrod Taylor has played quite a bit. I don't know. But I got to tell you, the Jets are going to win one.
Yeah.
Should the Cowboys be afraid of this one?
Absolutely. Because the quarterback in Justin Fields, man, what he can do, I think plays right into what the Cowboys defense does not do well. And
there's a list of that, though.
There's a list of that. But quarterbacks that can move outside of the pocket and make plays happen with their legs, that's been a problem here early on. We saw Jalen Hurts do that with the Eagles. We even saw Russell Wilson get active in that department. Caleb Williams, Jordan Love had a big scramble. Justin Fields will get his, and he had a 50-some-odd rushing touchdown in this game last night that they had on Monday night. But I think with you laid it out, the opponents that they have in front of them, they have to build a winning streak here. Yep. And if they don't, it's going to be really tough for them to find consistent wins on the back half of the schedule because it's so tough, and they need to get the wins while they can. So they right before the bye week, at Jets, at Panthers, home against the Commanders, at Broncos, and then home against the Cardinals. They need to go 4-1 in that stretch.
There's no way they're going 4-1 in that stretch.
They have to figure out how to do it. And if they don't, then this is going to be a really tough way to figure out how to sneak into the playoffs.
And the only reason I'm not saying that they can, but there's nothing about this team that says they have a 4-1 stretch in them, that they can be that consistent. And the quarterback is playing very well right now. And he's throwing the ball as well as I've seen almost every game he's played. And I can't think of a time when Dak Prescott, maybe a couple of years ago, has been on it the way he was on it Sunday night especially. Boy, he was good. He was so good, which is what makes that tie so tough. Is it's not a waste, but it's more like, oh, man, that should have been a win. Real quick, I want to ask you, we've seen quarterbacks in this league, especially in the last few years, they go into a team with high expectations, they start playing right away, and the team gives up on them. And then they go someplace else, and maybe it works. And now we're seeing Justin Fields starts in Chicago. Chicago gives up on him. He goes to Pittsburgh, can't get on the field. Now he goes to the Jets. He's making some plays, but the Jets are 0-4. The poster child, this one is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield goes to Cleveland. The Browns give up on him because they don't like him. Goes to the Rams. They're like, well, it's not going to really work out because you're behind Matt Stafford. Goes to Carolina, stinks. And now he's a really good NFL quarterback. Maybe not, top 5, but really, really good. Now, the latest one we're seeing, I can't believe it, is Daniel Jones, the quarterback of the Giants. They give up on him last year. Now he winds up in Indianapolis. He takes Anthony Richardson's job because Anthony Richardson can't do it yet. And now the Colts are 3-1. And Daniel Jones is playing pretty well. Where do you put Justin? And we're seeing other guys do it. Where do you put Justin Fields in that kind of conversation?
Yeah, it's tough for him to find consistency. And, him being told he was the starter in Pittsburgh last year and then getting yanked in week 6, I think it was, for essentially no reason. That didn't help his progression either. I thought he was fine in Chicago, but they landed it with the number 1 overall pick, and Caleb Williams at that time, hey, this is a better option than Justin Fields. And he would still be in Chicago had they not fallen into that number 1 pick that year. And that was by no fault of Justin Fields, because they were 8-9 that year, and it was the Carolina Panthers number 1 overall pick that they traded to acquire Bryce Young the year before. Yeah, if you think about it, the Carolina Panthers traded away Caleb Williams and Will Anderson for Bryce Young. It's really bad. And
I think they could have had C.J. Stroud. And you can make a commentary on C.J. Stroud. Obviously, it's changed a lot in the last couple of years, but I just can't figure out where is Justin Fields, Baker Mayfield. He'll wind up being pretty good, like maybe Daniel Jones. And I know this is early on Daniel Jones, but Mayfield, it's not.
I will say, I always thought Daniel Jones had it. I always thought it was a system problem in New York. I am on record saying that multiple times, but it's worked out for him in Indianapolis because I think he has the talent to do so. But this is a system league, and you have to be in the right system. Yeah. And, I don't know if this is the right system for Justin Fields with the Jets. It's a starting opportunity, so he had to take it. I don't know if it's the right system. This is not the right system for Bryce Young that he's dealing with in Carolina. I think you're eventually going to see them move on from him at some point. With Baker Mayfield, it's the perfect system for him in Tampa Bay, and that's why it's worked out so great. So for Daniel Jones, it's a great system for him because they focus on physical football up front. They're able to keep him clean, and it allows him to find some rushing lanes around the edges. And, when he's able to maximize his athleticism, that's when he's at his best, and that's what he's been able to do early on in Indianapolis, Indiana Jones, if you will. But with Justin Fields, it's going to take time, and it's going to take the right system. I'm not sure if he has the time anymore, though. He's already on his 3rd team, so time's running up.
Okay, prediction time. I do want to mention one thing. You said the games Dallas has coming up. Jets 0-4, Carolina 1-3, Commanders 2-2, and they don't have Jaden Daniels. Now, Marcus Mariota has won a game. I'm not sure the long-term prognosis of Jaden Daniels, but this is a big factor when you look at strength of schedules, and it benefits teams all over the league. Okay, what quarterback are you going to be playing against? And Dallas against Washington without Jaden Daniels is a much different matchup. And so if he's there, I would imagine in 3 weeks he's going to be there, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, he was close to making it this last Sunday. It sounds like he'll be ready to go this upcoming Sunday.
Okay, so it's prediction time. You and I were both wrong for the Packers game. Dallas came in as a 7.5 point, I think that was what I saw, 7.5 point underdog, and they obviously covered. No one won, but they obviously covered. Dallas is now a 2.5 point favorite. to win against the Jets in New York. Who do you like?
This is terrifying, taking a Cowboys cover, but I'm taking a Cowboys cover. I think they can do it against this Jets team. There's a lot of things that have me concerned, though. This team does not show up well for road noon games. MetLife Stadium, they don't show up well in day games. Running quarterback, there's a lot of things playing against this Cowboys team right now. But
I think the last time they played the Jets, Nick, the last time they played the Jets in New York, I was there. Sam Darnold kicked their – I think the Jets are going to get him. I hate to say it.
I don't blame you.
My batting average on these picks has not been good, by the way, but I just have a bad feeling about it. Had New York won any of these games, had they come in 1-3, I would have said the Cowboys were going to win. Yeah. But all the reasons that you just mentioned, running quarterback, it's a day game, it's MetLife, it's a game they should win, and I just have this weird feeling that they're not going to. However, the real winners here remain you, the people who get to watch and read Mr. Nick Harris, Emmy winner. Nick, last question. You have won an Emmy. That means you are that much closer to an EGOT. What will be your next trophy?
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? So when I was in high school, I was a freshman in high school, and shout out to the Allen Eagle Escadrille. It's the biggest marching band in the world, actually. And I played the trombone, and that
Seriously?
year I did for 1 year. It wasn't that long, and but in that 1 year, we did some performances, and we had a competition performance where we won a Grammy as a high school. I don't even remember the category, but the Escadrille won a Grammy. So technically, I'm 2 steps in.
You're 2 steps there.
I'm 2 steps
technically there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And my next one will be an Oscar when I come on throughout the season and pretend the Cowboys will fix their defensive issues. That'll be my acting debut.
Good transition. All right. Nick will be in New York for the Cowboys and Jets for all of you. And make sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com as this week TCU hosts Deion Sanders and his undefeated, that means undefeated with losses, Colorado Buffaloes on Saturday night at Amon G. Carter Stadium. Damn right, brother. Go Mean Green.
5-0.
5-0 and knocking on the door. Look out, group of 5 playoff spot. UNT's got a real shot at it if they can keep their coach from leaving to Oklahoma State or Arkansas before the season actually ends. For all of those needs, be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. Thank you, Nick Harris, and we will see you next week.